All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this parent information session that focuses on the high school enrichment program and the shifts in the model that you've received a little bit of information about. Our team is together this evening to provide more information, more context. And so I'm going to introduce who's on the panel tonight. I'm Winyewe Dewan, I'm the assistant superintendent, and I'm very pleased to introduce our team this evening, which includes Dr. Kelly Heim-McCluskey, who's our Director of Student Services, Dr. Karen Haney, who is our acting principal at the high school, Dr. Jen Schmidt, who's our Director of Teaching and Learning, and Ms. Keziah Latour, who's our Director of Equity and Cultural Responsiveness. Tonight's presentation is going to start with the team providing a brief overview that should be about 15 minutes, followed by an hour to open up the floor for questions and answers. The format of the meeting, as you can see, is shifted to Zoom. We wanted to ensure that we could accommodate as many families as possible, knowing that we opened up this meeting K-12. So with our elementary families being able to join in, we wanted to ensure that we could accommodate everyone virtually. And with the virtual format, we do have two ways that people can connect and share their questions. One is using the Q&A feature. And so if you are using Zoom on a device, you can see at the bottom Q&A. If you're using Zoom on a handheld device, such as a phone or a tablet, then you'll look for the three dots, and that'll extend to show you these additional features such as Q&A. When you use Q&A, you can type your questions in, and then at the end, when we open the floor after the team presents, there'll be the opportunity for our team to answer your questions. And then the other option is the raise hand feature, which you again should see at the bottom of your screen if you're using a desktop device. If you're using a handheld device, then you'll want to look for the three dots, which extends to more options, and that's where you'll see raise hand. As the team gets started in walking through, many questions may be answered during the presentation. So you may want to, we're going to invite you to hold your questions until the end. That way you can have the information that the team is going to present tonight. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Latour. Ms. Latour is serving in helping us to get situated with our norms, and she'll be walking us through at the end through the Q&A, helping to gather us all the questions for the team. So I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Latour.
Thank you, Dr. Dewan. So after the part, we can next slide. It provides us an opportunity to hear about how we're related to and actually those are options. So for and we'll have the second norm that we have in place is speaking from your own experience. We want to think about your take space and make space. We have over 100 individuals joining us.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. Team, was Ms. Latour choppy for you? Okay, I'm so sorry, Ms. Latour. There was some reverberation in your feedback there. Can I ask you to restart this slide, please? Sorry.
Absolutely. So for our meeting norms for this evening, we're looking at question to understand, speak from your own experience, take space and make space. We have over 100 people who have joined us this evening, and we want to make sure that we are able to address all questions that are being posed. So again, taking space and making space for others to also pose their queries. And then our last norm of the evening is expect and accept non-closure. Our hope and goal is to ensure that we address all questions that come tonight. However, if we're not able to address a question, we hope that you again will take us up on our invitation to reach out to Dr. Heim-McCluskey or Dr. Haney to further up with your questions. Thank you for the norms, and we'll move on to our next slide.
Thank you, Keziah. So as we look to reframe the enrichment model at the high school, I wanted to review what we currently have in the Wissahickon School District as part of our enrichment model K-12. And in order to do that, I wanted to also review Chapter 16. So Chapter 16, I apologize, let me see. Chapter 16 is the law that governs gifted education in the state of Pennsylvania. And basically, to summarize what Chapter 16 says, is that we need to provide a continual of support services ranging that reflect the student's individual strength-based academic needs. And a student who is identified as gifted may or may not be eligible for a GIEP. The GIEP is based on a two-tier prong, and that is that they meet the mentally gifted definition and that they are in need in specially designed instruction beyond what is provided in the general education classroom. So what is gifted education? Gifted education is a focus on developing and using higher order thinking skills through conceptually challenging students in the general education setting, along with acceleration or enrichment activities that go beyond the curriculum. It allows students to be creative and explore in-depth, distinctive, and complex topics more deeply within a typical curriculum. Enhancing the students' creativity, critical thinking skills, collaboration, and communication. Support and services that cannot be met in the general education curriculum, and it's based on strength needs support. So what is gifted education? What is not gifted education? Enrichment programs are not programs that prepare students for transition to college's rigor or for time management skills. It is not based on a deficient need. It does not provide more work within a course. Enrichment programs are not provided in one academic area. A child in one area may not be gifted in another area, or they may be gifted in multiple areas. So we need to look at all of that. So currently in the Wissahickon School District, our enrichment programs run from K to 12. In our K-5 program, we have a pull-out strength-based program that is pulled out on a 3-day out of our 12-day cycle. In our elementary, we work on 12 days scheduling. So they are pulled out 3 days of that cycle, and we provide push-in support to either language arts and or math for 3 of those days as well. In a K-5 program, the enrichment program is ungraded. The students do not receive grades for their enrichment program. In 6 to 8, we offer seminars at the Unifying Art period. We offer 4 seminars a year. They are able to take all 4 seminars, but they must take 2 of those seminars that focuses on their strength-based need. We also provide a push-in enrichment program into either, again, ELA and or math with small groups of enrichment and general education peers. At our 9th and 10th grade level, we have a self-contained ELA and social studies enrichment class. This class is graded, and this is the only time that the students are graded in an enrichment program. There are no other gifted or enrichment programs that are offered in 9th to 10th grade besides this self-contained ELA social studies enrichment course. In 11th and 12th grade, we have more of an itinerant support in which there is a check-in support through an enrichment teacher who helps accelerate the program. Who helps check in with the students to make sure that their course and academic journal is on the right track that they need to have in the 11th and 12th grade. It is different times throughout the schedule that they are pulled to meet with the enrichment teacher. We also offer some accelerated programming through distance learning, and it's students who have maxed out our curriculum that they can take some distance learning at a college or a university where they have the course that they're looking for in ELA math at this point. So the why of why we're looking at to reframe the high school enrichment program falls under a lot of different models of why we want to look at excellence for our students at the high school and K to 12. So when we're looking at reframing the high school, we're looking at the K to 12 program and how we can have that all follow the academic journey for all students. So we are looking at, first and foremost, that our model at the high school is aligned to foster academic growth, critical thinking, and personal development. And that is the mission and the value that we have across all of our enrichment programs, K to 12. We also are looking at the academic rigor that we can provide to students, not just in ELA and math, but on any course in which is their chosen subject of giftedness, rather it be science, social studies, math, or English language arts. We are looking for flexibility so that students have are able to be provided with the collaboration to meet with enrichment teachers to ensure that their academic journey is reviewed and supported, and this is the direction and pathway that they want to move forward to. We look at diverse learning environments so that the students are learning not just alongside their other enrichment peers, but also a wide range of talents and interests within their non-enrichment peers. And we look at transition so that each student can maximize their potential and fully embrace their academic challenges and opportunities within the Wissahickon High School and not be prevented just down one path. I'm going to pass that off to Dr. Schmidt.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hapikleski. So as we move forward with any changes to a program or a model that's in place in the district, one of the steps that we typically embark upon is to conduct research by connecting with other school districts to learn about models that they currently have in place. And so we took this step to learn about the gifted education models that are in place at other area high schools. And when we were speaking with our colleagues from other districts, the gifted education models really do incorporate many of the strategies and the areas of focus that Dr. Hapikleski just spoke to in terms of the diversification of offering, the flexibility in terms of what's provided to students, and opportunities for students to not only take part in that enrichment within their general education classrooms, but also opportunities for students to meet with peer groups. And so those models really are designed to offer that more rigorous learning that's tailored to the students' strength-based needs by providing enrichment and acceleration and specialized learning opportunities in specific subject areas. And so many of those models do embed enrichment into the general education classroom within those honors and AP level courses. And that enrichment is embedded through student choice, through tiered assignments, differentiation of content and process and product, providing project-based assignments, and also opportunities for students to engage in independent research. Classroom teachers work in consultation with the gifted education teachers to meet those strength-based needs, and also to foster those critical thinking and problem-solving skills, the creativity, and also to foster leadership skills, which are key elements of our existing K-12 gifted education program. Many of the models also incorporated acceleration opportunities for eligible students, and they could take dual credit courses or also take various courses beyond their grade level. And so that would be something that we would be looking at the high school level. And then finally, we also found that specialized courses or learning opportunities were also offered as part of the gifted education models for students to meet and learn with their peer group. And some of those examples include some different field trips, seminar courses where students can earn that elective credit, also opportunities for students to engage in different coursework or connect during gifted education study halls. So these are all, different models that we would continue to take a look at. And as we move forward, we'll continue to, connect and learn more about these different models and opportunities that are in place in other school districts. And then now I'll turn it over to Dr. Karen Haney.
Good evening, everyone. So Jen actually shared a great segue into the conversation that I'm going to be presenting this evening, which is just where we are and what we are hoping to keep, some things that we are considering. So we know that there are things that we want to keep from the current gifted model: the creativity, the rigor, the enrichment, the project-based instruction, the opportunities for acceleration, and the relationships between the teachers and the students. I need to be very clear about something. We are not looking to discontinue the enrichment program at our high school. We are looking to revise the way in which those supports are offered to students. And a lot of that is based on everything that's led up to this point in the conversation. But I need to make sure that the audience understands that we are not looking to discontinue. We are just looking to reframe how those supports are offered to our students. So what do we do now that we want to continue, that we will carry over? Students who are currently eligible for gifted supports will continue to be eligible for gifted supports. We will continue to look at that project-based instruction, that creativity, and add to it some differentiation in the new model. Students with GIEP goals, they're still going to have goals under the GIEP. We are still looking at having gifted support teachers to service the needs of our gifted student population. And we do, as Dr. Schmidt said, we recognize that there is a lot of power in the peer group that our gifted students currently experience with other gifted students. And so we will determine ways for our students to continue to be together outside of an English or a social studies classroom. And so what are some of the things that we're looking to reframe? So as I just said, instead of doing a self-contained English and social studies class, we're looking to provide those enrichment opportunities outside of English and social studies, similar to some of the things that Dr. Schmidt was sharing earlier that other districts do. How else can we provide enrichment to our gifted students? Right now, our goals for our enrichment students are based strictly on English and social studies, but the reality is that not every student who is gifted has a goal in English or social studies. So we're hoping to meet the students in their areas of strength-based needs through their GIEP, regardless of what core content area or core curriculum they may be affiliated with. And right now, the enrichment is provided through 3 high school staff members, and we're looking to include additional members of our high school staff in enriching our gifted student population. So what might it look like at the high school? So we are going to build supports. We are going to enrich our students in the core curricular areas and in all the core curricular areas: the English, the math, the social studies, the science. We have discussed the idea of providing a seminar similar to some of our other local school districts. How do we provide that peer support for our enrichment students? And maybe that is through a seminar for our gifted student population. Perhaps it's an elective, and an optional elective at that, for students to take for additional enrichment. We've talked about providing that similarly through a study hall that would be composed of our gifted enrichment population. We know that we will provide additional distance learning opportunities. We'll continue to provide our dual credit opportunities, and even look to offer some independent study opportunities for our enrichment students in a variety of areas, again, outside of the English and the social studies. So where are we going from here? So we are going to continue to collect and review data for the next couple of months around this new model. In March of 2024, we hope to propose a format for the enrichment program, and then for the weeks that follow that, re-examine that feedback from that proposal in March and update that proposal so that by May and June, we can plan and we can schedule our students under the new format, and then certainly schedule another parent meeting to occur after those final things are put in place. I also would like to just say that we have, and I've been the recipient of emails and communications from a variety of stakeholders over the last couple of weeks. And I've done my best, I think the team has done our best to address those questions and those emails. And I very, very much appreciate the feedback because it's helped to kind of gear our understanding of what the questions are and how best to address some of that this evening. I just want to make sure that we focus the rest of this evening on, well, first of all, I want to say thank you, appreciate the feedback, but also want to make sure that we focus the conversations this evening around your questions about what this new reframed model might look like. And that's why we are all here to answer any questions that you might have. I'd like to welcome Ms. Latour back, and she'll run through some final thoughts before we open the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Haney. So again, as we go into our 60 minutes that we'll be allotting to really engage in the questions that you have for us. We have two formats that you can use. Again, the Q&A, where you can pose your questions that way. And then also you can use your raise hand and we'll call on you that way too. And that's an unmuting. And as we go through, we just want to remember and provide a reminder to you of our norms, which are so essential. We are lucky this evening to have students in our midst. So we have students joining us. And as we look at the norms, we want to emphasize and encourage the questions to understand, speaking again from your own experience, taking space and making space, because we have a great deal of questions. And then expecting and accepting non-closure. Should we not get to every question this evening, there is the opportunity to reach out directly to Dr. Karen Haney and Dr. Kelly High-McCluskey, who are both on the call this evening. So at this time, I want to start with the opportunity to take some of the Q&A that we have within our chat. So there's a question here. How many days out of 12 are the push-in services in K through 5? So again, how many days out of 12 are the push-in services in grades K through 5?
So I can answer that. That is, in a 12-day cycle, it's 3 days of push out and 3 days of push in.
Thank you. Our next question, we had someone who joined us a little late. Could you please share current enrichment programming for grades 2 and grades 7?
Sure. In the elementary grades, we have, as I just said, 3 days of push-in support, 3 days of pull-out support in a 12-day cycle. And in the middle school, we have seminars that we offer quarterly throughout the year. Students are required to take 2, but they may take 4 during their unified arts.
Thank you for that. So it was mentioned that the only graded enrichment class was for 9th and 10th graders. The question then relates to middle school and the gifted classes there. Could you expand upon what
I'm sorry, because I didn't get the end of that question.
Okay, thank you for that. Going back to that question is classes that were graded. Could you expand upon what's offered there in the middle school?
At the middle school, they get the seminar classes during their unified arts time. So that I assume that that's what they're talking about. The unified arts would be graded at that point.
And they're graded at that point through those courses.
Through the unified arts, but the gifted enrichment program, the seminars are seminars.
Thank you for that. The next question is about AP and honors. And so again, as we look at this particular query, it's asking how are gifted students expected to receive the same intellectual challenges that are offered in gifted 9th and 10th grade through an AP and honors course?
I can answer that because so the answer to that is simple. We're going to enrich the students in the AP and honors courses if there is a need. We have found that a lot of our gifted students are the rigor of the AP and honors classes does meet the needs of a lot of our gifted population. But if that is not the case, we will look to differentiate, to enrich, and to provide extension and projects for our students in the core curricula. And as part of the presentation, I also shared that we've been considering the model of a potential gifted seminar course, which would also allow for additional enrichment for our gifted student population.
Thank you for that, Dr. Heaney. We do have some raised hands, and so I like to shift from the Q&A chat to the attendees who have their hands raised. And so we'll start with our first person who has her hand raised, and that is Michelle Antonio.
Hi, I just wanted to ask a question about the presentation is talking about the desire to reframe the gifted program at the high school. And I was just curious, like, what's the motivation behind needing to reframe it? Was there some sort of feedback that the current program wasn't working? So I'm just curious about the rationale or the motivation to reframe.
Thank you for that question.
Kelly, I don't know if you want to take that answer or if there's somebody else on the committee who does. Michelle, thank you for asking that question because I think it's a question that a lot of folks have. It's been a discussion that I've been a part of now for quite a while. And I would say to you that I don't believe that there is anybody on this committee who doesn't think what's currently happening in those classes is I don't want to, the words escaping me, but is a bad experience or a negative experience for our students. It's simply that I think there are other ways to, I believe wholeheartedly that there are other ways to meet our gifted students through enrichment outside of the core curricula. I believe that if you have a student who is coming into 9th grade or in 10th grade and does have a GIEP for strength-based needs in social studies even, that the current program, that there's no reason why that student's needs can't be met through an AP course that we could offer them in 9th or 10th grade, and look to enrich their giftedness, all students who are gifted outside of the core curriculum.
Thank you, Dr. Heaney.
Sorry, I would just add on that another reason is, as Karen was saying earlier, was the opening up the options for gifted supports to students who are gifted in math and science and in other areas than just the ELA and social studies.
Thank you. We're going to go to the next presenter. Next query. And that's Mike Schultz.
Yes, I guess I have a couple questions. One, usually it's the case that there is an open period of exchange between the community for issues like this. The previous person who posed the question, I think, posed a good one, and that one I don't think has been answered, which is why is, for instance, the 9th and 10th grade class or program being eliminated? It is an excellent one. And there's really been no justification given that it needs to be eliminated. You talk about making enrichment available in other classes, I think that's a great idea. But I haven't heard any reason that what is there and is working, that it should be eliminated. And I would like to hear some justification for why it needs to be eliminated.
Thank you for that question.
I'm happy to try to answer that. Mr. Schultz, I'm sorry that I wasn't as articulate or didn't explain as well to Ms. Antonio's question as I had or should. The idea that gifted enrichment be provided only in social studies and English at the high school is fallacious thinking, right? Not every student that comes into the high school is gifted in social studies and English. So the idea that we can enrich students across all core curricula, in all core classes, honors, academic, AP, we've proven it's possible. We prove it in 11th and 12th grade that it's possible. The idea of having a self-contained English and social studies class in 9th and 10th grade when we have programming at the high school that can, for all intents and purposes, meet many of our students' GIEP strength-based needs, and then provide additional enrichment in a variety of ways, I think is the direction that, or I know is the direction that these conversations have taken.
Thank you, Dr. Haney. So we're going to now shift back to our Q&A. There are questions that are posed here. I will read the question for you so that you can respond. First one is, were there objective, performance-related, or other metrics which were obtained that warranted the elimination of an otherwise successful and well-received program by most students and parents? If there were negative metrics which warranted this removal, please share. And there are about 16 individuals who are supporting that particular question. I'm curious about that question of metrics or what warranted the elimination from their understanding of the program. I'll repeat the question. Were there objective, and please let me know if my mic is not, if there are still technical problems with my mic, because I'll look to that, but I will repeat this here. Were there objective performance related or other metrics which were obtained that warranted the elimination of an otherwise successful and well-received program by most students and parents? If there were negative metrics which warranted this removal, please share.
So I can share that, no, there were no metrics that displayed any negative, I guess it was a negative metrics for the program. We're looking at the whole program and not just specific metrics.
Thank you. And so we'll move on to our next question. In terms of what we stated this evening, so although you state that the district is not eliminating the gifted program in 9th and 10th grade, the positioning of this speaker is you're effectively eliminating the gifted program since the publicized replacement is augmentation with honors and AP classes, which already exist. The question is, what is or are the identified replacement course offerings? So I'll repeat this because it's
you don't have to,
important
because I can answer that question. So
Perfect.
as I had referenced in my presentation, we've talked a lot about recognizing the importance of our gifted students having those same-minded, like-minded peers, and having those seminar types of activities. I know, as Dr. Schmidt had shared, that Hepper Horsham does something similar. They also have field trips that the students take. There's a lot of different models that we could be that we could adopt here at the high school. But it's, to answer the question is, yeah, I'm sorry, I can no longer see the question, but there are definitely discussions about how we will provide enrichment to our gifted students at the high school. And I will go back, I will say it again, we are not eliminating, I know that that was part of the question, but the answer is we are not eliminating gifted services at the high school. We are looking to try to provide enrichment in other ways outside of 2 core content area courses.
Thank you, Dr. Haney. So we have another question. We'll move forward to going into our
Desire, try to turn off your video and see if that helps with your audio.
Oh, thank you so much. So at this point, are you able to hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. I don't know how long that was problematic, but thank you for giving me a heads up there. In our box to, again, going to what I see as a raised hand in the participant audience. And so we're looking at our next person.
Hello?
Charles Tan.
Yes.
Hi, Charles. Mm-hmm.
Hello. Hi. I heard not all kids are necessarily gifted in the same area, but other than language and social science, there are math class kids can already choose. I don't see that changing, so I don't see that is a reason to eliminate an option for the gifted program. I know you try to emphasize you are not eliminating the program, but you eliminate an important option for the parents. You try to mimic school district around us. Let me just give you my parents' perspective. I have 2 kids who went through this program. This program is one of the reasons we stayed with the local public school. We were thinking about private schools. This program was one of the reasons. And you also, basically the way you describe the future program reminds me of what we have been doing in middle school. It's basically, we have a program, GIEP, but I don't see anything substantial. And the 9th, 10th grade gifted class is the one I saw my kids are being truly challenged. It was a struggle for them, actually. But afterward, they tell me, they can tell which student is the one went through it and which student didn't. So they are at a different level. So to me, the whole Wissahickon School District program, the highlight of the gifted program is actually this program you're trying to eliminate. So you better have good reasons to fix something not broken. So I guess my question is the same as the previous 2 parents. What's the reason we're removing it?
Okay, thank you for that question. So I'm going to go ahead, Dr. Hyman McCluskey.
I was just going to say, that we appreciate your feedback and that I understand fully that everybody's passionate about this topic, but there are, I think we discussed through our presentation and with Dr. Haney, the reasons why we feel that we need to look at reframing the gifted program for 9th and 10th grade so that we're meeting the needs of all gifted students and not just students who are gifted in ELA and social studies.
And can I jump in really quickly? Because the gentleman who had the question had said that there was programming at the 9th and 10th grade level for the math, for example. I think that was the example that he offered. I think one of the things that I was remiss in sharing earlier, and you can correct me if I was wrong, but the GI towards the end of this year, we will hold a GIEP meeting and continue to hold GIEP meetings for students annually, right? But specifically for our 8th graders, and look at their strength-based needs and what their area of giftedness is. And the GIEP will dictate course programming for next year. So just like we have math classes that could meet a student's need in 9th grade, we have English classes that could potentially meet a student's need in 9th grade. We could look to the GIEP will supersede the prerequisites that are listed in the program of studies. So if we have a student who would benefit from taking AP literature in 9th grade, then it's a conversation and a decision that the GIEP team makes together. But we aren't bound to the prerequisites as listed in the program of studies. So if there is a way to enrich a student in 9th grade because they are gifted in English and need that additional challenge and rigor, then we do that because the GIEP supersedes anything that we have printed in our POS. That was just to add. I think I neglected to share that information early on, and I think it's important to helping you understand that I truly believe we have programming to meet the needs of our students in 9th and 10th grade. And I also know that we are going to enrich our students in those core curriculum areas and provide additional opportunities and additional paths to our gifted students for additional enrichment in the high school.
Thank you, Dr. Haney. At this point, I just want to remind everyone that we do have students in the audience. We are so lucky to have them join us this evening. And as a reminder, we do have norms in place. Again, as we lean into our conversation with our queries, question to understand, continue to speak from your own experience, and please continue to take space and make space. We also will reiterate that expect and accept non-closure is a part of our norms. We're hoping to honor everyone this evening, ensuring that their questions are heard. However, if for some reason a question is not responded to during this evening, during this session, you can reach out to Dr. Karen Haney and Dr. Chaim McCluskey. All right. At this point, I do see another raised hand that I'd like to get to. So if we would, let's just go ahead with Jim Sacco, who's here this evening with us. Thank you, Jim, for joining us. Your question? If you are posing a question, you are currently muted. We're unable to hear you.
Sorry, how's that? Can you hear me now?
That's perfect. Yes. Loudly and
sorry
clearly.
about that. All right.
No worries.
Basically what it is, it seems this presentation to date, not just tonight, but emails and communications have been unnecessarily kind of obtuse, like obscure. It's rather, I'm still trying to figure out what exactly is going on. I mean, my son is in 8th grade, right? So we're coming into this program, so I don't quite know what's going on. Right now we have gifted in ELA and social studies. We're looking to change it so that it's an AP course instead, right? Which we already have in English ELA and social studies because we think it's redundant. Is that what's going on? And also, we already have AP in other academic subjects, and we're just moving to the standard AP curriculum like we had, like, when was that, 30 years ago or something that I went through? I mean, is that what we're doing here or what? And again, the reasoning has still not been made clear. Like, you've been asked like 3 times and it's still like, well, we just kind of think it's better that way. Like can you just say it in like 50 words? Like, just sum it up clearly. Why we're doing this and what exactly is changing. I mean, they're going to AP classes and they'll still be able to get enrichment as well through the GIEP program, is what I'm understanding.
So Jim, I think you got the gist of what I've been saying. So thank you for that. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with how things are done at the high school currently, but under the current model right now, we have a pull out gifted program in 9th and 10th grade for English and social studies. So every gifted student who comes into the high school sits in these two classes. What we are proposing is the removal of that pull-out gifted program in English and social studies, and allowing our gifted students additional choice in those core content areas. So that might, in some cases, look like an academic English class, an honors English class, or for a student who's truly gifted and needs additional challenge and rigor, it might look like an AP class or a seminar class, in lieu of what our current model, which is the pull-out instruction for gifted only students in English and social studies. It's going to vary, and I think this is really important too. It's going to vary by student. So there's going to be individual conversations around every gifted student coming into the high school about how best to meet their needs. If those students are not being, decide not to take an AP class necessarily in 9th grade, they don't have to. We'll enrich them through other opportunities in the general education curriculum, or even through what we've talked about as a gifted seminar, or other opportunities for the gifted students to get enrichment outside of the core curriculum.
The program and curiosities as to why it's shifting. And I know that both you and Dr. Hein McCluskey have spoken as to the why in terms of the change and the reframe. As we continue to look at some of the comments that are here, again, there's the reiteration that I'm seeing of how important and impactful the current gifted program has been to them as parents, guardians, their children, and for them who have gone through the program themselves. In looking at a query for us to lift up, one is, when will gifted students receive their specific enrichment education? How would this fit in their class schedule?
Yeah, so I thank you for that question, because I think what I understood was the question was, how will we provide the gifted enrichment? And again, it might look different for every student. So the gifted support may be offered through the general education curriculum, whether that's an honors, an academic, or an AP course. Again, it could also look like a gifted seminar course that we could offer as an elective to students, where the enrichment is provided, again, outside of the core curricula areas of English and social studies, and kind of with a more broad stroke, but again, add some of the project-based learning activities and add some of the rigor. We're also hoping, we are also expecting, hoping is the wrong word, we also expect that our programming in the honors courses and for our gifted students in the general education programming will have the rigor and enrichment that our gifted students require and need as part of the core curriculum.
The question that I'm moving to is, will you help all students based on the changes?
Because I assume that you were asking, because we lost you again for a good chunk of that. At least I did. I don't know if the rest of the committee did, but can I assume that you were reading off of one of the questions at the top?
Yes, that is correct, Dr. Heaney.
Okay, so it looks like if you were reading Ms. Krause's email or her message, it looks like she was asking essentially informing us that how other districts structure their gifted program is kind of irrelevant to why we are doing that at the high school, and what successes have come from these other districts' programs. And I mean, Jen, Kelly, I don't know if you have an answer to that.
The certain model
What-
they have, they have seen success. Some of the districts have that model. It opens up more of students being able to double up with classes, be able to move to distance learning, be able to take other courses that they wouldn't be able to take being in a self-contained classroom. Other districts found that with the study halls and the specifically the study halls and the seminars, that they really do help the students prepare for the college and career. It allows them time to be with their peers and to further their enrichment peer group in discussions and activities and things like that. But it also allows them, though, to expand their horizons within the course selection that they offer in the schools. The one thing, too, that I want to reiterate is that we are looking at reframing the model that we have at the high school with the input of the gifted teachers. And families will be provided with that information, but we are asking the gifted teachers to sit with us and to go through how we can reframe that model. And as we talked about in the presentation, things that we want to keep from the current program and things that we may just want to reframe in order for us to see more success across all students with gifted GIEPs.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Hodley. I'm going to ask that you continue with the moderation because I am aware that my audio is not as strong as it was initially.
Sure. So the next question,
So the next question, Kelly said, please explain the impetus to reframe.
correct.
I mean, I don't know what else I can say around the conversation. I've been a part of multiple conversations about this. And I believe that the idea that we are providing gifted enrichment in only English and social studies is it just isn't meeting everyone's strength-based needs for our gifted population. And we want to provide additional rigor for our gifted students in the core curricular areas in other ways, and then provide enrichment opportunities to them outside of the core curriculum.
Another question we have from Tom McCabe is, what was broken in the current high school curriculum? As a parent of a student who went through this, she benefited greatly from the discussions.
Again, I hope that we've been kind of clear in answering this question, but we're really looking to try to find other ways to continue those discussions and provide those opportunities.
The next question is, has there been a formal evaluation conducted of the current gifted program, inclusive of teachers, parents, and current and past students? I don't believe there's been any formal evaluation that was conducted, amongst the teachers, parents, and the current students. And I'm going to take some hands. Like Felicia Kraus. You can unmute yourself.
It's not letting. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you very much.
Well, Hi, I am a Wissahickon High School alum, and I was in the gifted program, and I was incredibly surprised to hear about this, especially because when I communicated with Mr. Perlman and Mr. McDaniels, they both told me that they were surprised by this change as well. It's unclear to me why you expect what you expect from any changes, how they would still be fulfilling for gifted kids. I took honors and AP classes, and I fully agree that they're academically challenging, but I don't perceive them to have the same level of intellectual challenge that the enrichment sections of the English and history classes I took in gifted were. How do you expect to be able to make sure that the students still receive that?
Felicia, I think your question is how do we expect to provide enrichment to our gifted students, and the intellectual challenge that accompanies the current model?
Correct.
We will still have gifted enrichment teachers who are ensuring that the needs of our students are met in the core curricular classes. So it might be an extension activity. There's going to be more differentiation certainly occurring to meet the needs of all of the students in the classes, including our gifted student population. I believe wholeheartedly that the rigor will still be there for our gifted students, and those opportunities that you may have benefited from as a former gifted student in terms of kind of lost my train of thought, but in terms of the opportunity to be with like-minded peers, we will certainly look to provide that opportunity as well.
Next is Joanna. Joanna, if you can unmute yourself.
Hi, this is a former gifted student speaking. I was just wondering if there was any observation of the current gifted projects as the projects that I experienced, including the BRAIN project and bioethics project specifically, focused on both science and research, which science being one of the areas that you had mentioned as a place for additional enrichment.
Still muted. Hi, Joanna. Yes, so I'm very familiar with, well, I will say mostly familiar with a lot of what happens in our gifted classes here. I've had the opportunity to visit Mr. Perlman's classroom, Mr. McDaniel's classroom, and yes, I am also aware that the bioethics project does involve science, and I think it would be a great opportunity or a great way to further enrich some of what's happening in our core curriculum in terms of our science classes for our gifted students. So yeah, I think I don't want anyone on this call to think some of the things that are currently happening in that class won't continue to happen. It's just a matter of where that enrichment takes place and how it's delivered to our students.
Next caller is Nina Sedell. Nina, if you could unmute yourself.
Hi, yeah, I really just have a comment. I have a son currently in 10th grade in the gifted program and another son in 7th grade in the gifted program. And I understand the need, or what you're saying is the need to have other things besides social studies and language arts. But I just want to stress really what a lot of the other parents have been saying. The program right now is great. And my son, who does excel in topics other than social studies and language arts, feels challenged. It's really the first time he's been challenged. And I don't think he feels like he's missing out on anything. So I would just stress that maybe it's just be considered that taking this program out isn't the right thing to do, and maybe you can just add something else to it or provide some other options, because I think the teachers and the program are really strong, and I'm honestly really sad and disappointed that my younger student is not going to be able to experience this class.
Thank you, Nina, for your comment. I'm just going to go back to some of the posted questions. The the next posted question looks like, when will GIEPs be, will new GIEPs be developed for all students based on the changes? I can answer that is that we will be looking at all GIEPs and looking at the individual students' based needs and seeing what is needed to provide the gifted support for them. That will be happening after the winter break. We have another question. Dr. Schmidt, this might be for you. Can you also please comment on any differences in student experience or educational outcomes from the school districts which were referenced for benchmarking? So this comment is, I'm sorry, this question is asking about the school districts that we looked at and what their programs are. I did not receive any comments or had any discussion with outcomes based on benchmarking or of any type of metrics. And Karen, I don't know if you want to, when you spoke to the districts that you spoke to.
No,
Sorry, Kelly, I was nodding my head. No, I think the programs and the models that are in our neighboring school districts and the folks that I've spoken to believe very much that the program models that they have are successful and benefit their students, but I don't have any tangible data to share.
Another question was asked was, students have been able to test out and accelerate to advanced courses for many years. Can you clarify what this change would add to the enrichment that students receive?
I just would say that in my opinion, it would open up more opportunities for students to take enrichment courses in their area of strength. So what I envision happening is sitting down at the table as the student is coming into high school or finishing 8th grade and mapping out that trajectory. Yes, they could take an AP class in 9th grade, but they're taking the gifted English class in 9th grade. They're taking the gifted English class in 10th grade. What I'd love to do is say, okay, the student could take AP seminar in 9th grade, AP research in 10th grade. They could take AP literature in 11th grade, and not necessarily in that model, but give them more opportunities to accelerate. If English in that example is their area of giftedness, give them more opportunities to accelerate in that strength-based area.
Thank you, Dr. Haney. There are a couple of questions on here that ask how will the new program that's rolled out in May and June, how's that going to affect high school course selection?
Yeah, so I'm fortunately or unfortunately for me, I am one of the folks at the high school who is responsible for our master schedule. So we will absolutely be manipulating changes as these IEP conversations are happening. Contacting families, working with families and students in terms of appropriately scheduling students for next year. Remember, the master schedule is, we do the very best we can to determine the classes that we are running before you leave for the summer, but we're still working with our, sleeves rolled up and deep into master scheduling well into July. So I am not concerned about the timeline that we've proposed in terms of being able to best meet the needs of all of our students and our gifted students in particular.
Another question has asked, a couple of questions have asked, why were student and teacher voices not considered when making this decision? These are the people who are affected. Jen, do you want to review how we go through like a curriculum process and that we do get student input, but at this point we weren't at that point?
Sure. I mean, any time we're working through a programmatic change or a curriculum review process, and we work to really identify the sort of the direction that a program is going, and sometimes those programs are the shifts that are are made are, state mandated, and other times, we're making those shifts so that our program is aligned with the mission and the vision of our school district. But as we work to refine the programming that's offered, we do involve different stakeholders in that process. So even with this work, I think, as we've mentioned, we'll be leveraging the expertise of our gifted education teachers to lift up the the different experiences that are taking place within the program at the high school, and really at all levels. We'll be wanting to also get feedback from families and also from students, and that's a regular part of our process to continue to inform and guide the work moving forward.
I'm going to switch back to hands at this time. Su Yi, please unmute.
Yes, thank you. So, with all due respect for Dr. Haney and Dr. Hi McCloskey, I realize that, all of this education and planning for such a big group of students is extremely difficult. But being a parent of an 11th grader who has gone through the 9th and 10th grade combined program, and also a parent of an 8th grader who was hoping to be able to participate in this program, I still feel that none of you have answered the question of why this one combined program is being eliminated. I understand that you're trying to provide more opportunities for gifted children in other subjects. I totally agree with that. Why not use this very successful combined class as a model that has been so well received and has been such a successful program for so many students, my daughter included, somebody who would not really have been probably even all that interested in a gifted history program, but because of this particular class has really excelled in public speaking, in group activities, science research, way more than just history and English. So I suggest, and I really hope that you consider all these parents' comments and suggestions, that we use this combined class as a model to maybe provide more opportunities in other subjects so that other students can be enriched in other subjects, just as this one class has been such a highlight of my daughter's high school years. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your feedback. Carrie, if you could unmute yourself, please.
Okay, so I have a bit of a comment and then a couple questions. I think people keep asking the same question over and over again about why the courses are being eliminated. And I think the reason they keep asking is because they weren't given a answer to satisfy the question. And perhaps that's because there is no good answer that would satisfy the question. Again, I know that you were saying that it's to enrich in other areas because it wasn't meeting the needs of all students, but I agree, then why eliminate it and not add on to it? So I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong. And then the other question I had was, what exactly is going to be replacing this? Because we talked about different seminars and field trips, and kids are going to be challenged, but there isn't a specific answer to that. And how are you going to provide the educational staffing for all these gifted kids when you currently have, I think you said 2 or 3 gifted teachers? So how are they going to provide the individual needs of all these students?
Kelly, I mean, there was a lot to that question, Jen. And
So we
Carrie, I'll
want
try to take that in pieces and do the best I can to answer the questions as I can. We have the staffing. We have currently 3 enrichment teachers who will continue in some capacity, continue to enrich our gifted student population. We may be looking at including additional teachers as gifted enrichment teachers in the process. In terms of the courses, the enrichment that currently happens in English and social studies will happen in a more broad stroke across all of our core curricular areas and involve additional teachers. There will be additional professional development opportunities provided to our general education teachers to ensure that enrichment is happening in those courses. Off the top of my head, that's some of what I think you asked, but Kelly, Jen, not sure if there's more.
Yeah, so the one thing I like to comment on is that the model that you're talking about and what happens in that classroom is we want to see that across all curricular areas. We want to see that same rigor. We want to see the same type of projects. We want to see all that challenging across the whole, all course curriculum and not just this classroom. So we will, as I had said earlier, with the input from the gifted teachers, be developing and offering to our school board a couple programs that we believe will be able to do that across all areas of a student's education. And yes, we don't have a definitive program yet. I think that was also part of your question, or what the model will look like at this time, but we are in the planning processes of that. We're asking for input from the gifted teachers. We're asking for input from the students. If you go back to this slide deck, the next steps are there. We will be looking at the stakeholders, and then we will be coming back and providing more information to the parents at that time. The next call is Charles Lee. Charles, if you like to unmute.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
I think I would probably echo some of the comments that have been made so far throughout this program. And I initially wanted to ask kind of a question along the lines of why exactly does the current gifted program, the model for the 9th and 10th grade students, need to be removed to implement like this wave of changes for the next year? But I kind of have something different to propose. Is you said earlier with your last answer that the model that the gifted program is currently set out to do is meant to be applied across all curricular areas. And I think that that in and of itself is a very good idea, but I still don't fully understand why we need to remove the current structure of the gifted program to achieve this. In and of itself, if the gifted program is meeting these needs and is what you want to extend to other areas, I don't see why it cannot be kept and then other stuff can be added onto it afterwards.
Charles, thank you for your comment. Okay, I'm going to be back to the posted questions. Patrick asked a question: how are you going to address the current issue of gifted students identification? The demographics of the gifted program are not at all reflective of the demographics of the school. Will this change to help resolve the issue? So we are looking at K-12 addressing the identification of students who are gifted. Within K-12 with the diversity of the demographics of the population, and we have put some stuff into place in the elementary level already. My answer to this would be yes. I think some of the changes will help some of the demographics of the district's identification program, especially because we'll be looking at an array of curriculum that students may be gifted in and not solely a self-directed classroom. But I want you to ensure that we are looking at the issue of gifted students identification K-12. Michael asked, enrolling in honors and AP classes would better prepare our students for the demands of college level coursework and future career opportunities. What resource exists comparing the current gifted classrooms to honors and AP classes? Can you provide actual data? So the one thing I can say is that the AP classes on a transcript hold more weight with the college acceptances and college review of student applications than the honors and the honors gifted class does. Another question was, how do you intend to make sure students are still adequately challenged? There's no freshman APs, and honors only cover 60% of the gifted curriculum.
Kelly, I can answer that really quickly. So we will have gifted enrichment teachers, gifted support teachers who are monitoring student GIEPs and ensuring that the needs are met in the courses that the student is registered in. We will ensure enrichment in those courses or in other models and in other ways. And I think I said earlier, and I just want to reiterate that the GIEP will supersede anything that's listed as a prerequisite. So if it is determined that a student's needs are better met in an AP class or an honors class, even if it's not at the grade level, we will definitely have those conversations, and the GIEP team can make those recommendations as part of that process.
Yeah, the next question is, there will be teachers who have not worked in the gifted program prior to this. How will these staff members be trained by whom, and what is the timeline for doing so?
So I would say to that, Kelly, I'm sorry, I don't know if you plan, like, our teachers have all been professionally developed in differentiated instruction, and I am very confident that we have some of the best teachers teaching across the county in our high school. And I am not concerned at all that they won't be able to enrich students or differentiate activities or lessons in their classrooms to meet the needs of the students. But as I said before, we will have gifted enrichment teachers who will ensure that enrichment is happening within the general education classroom, and obviously in other ways, as we've discussed as well.
The next question is, was taken working with an organization that has special knowledge in gifted education, such as the Pennsylvania Association for Gifted Education, to form options for refraining the high school gifted program? So our gifted, we have representatives from our staffing as well as myself who participate in the Montgomery County IU Gifted Task Force. And we also have some trainings and guidance through PATTN, which is the Pennsylvania Technical and Training. I'm messing up the whole PATTN acronym, but we look at that as well. We don't specifically look at the Pennsylvania Association for Gifted Education, but that's not to say that we can't do that. Going to go back to the hands. Glynice. Siskin, if you're ready to unmute yourself. Glynice Siskin. Going to go to the next one is April Ridley. Are you ready to unmute yourself?
Yes, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Thank you, good.
So my name's Emma Riley. I'm a student who went through the entire program. First, I have a comment and then I have a question. So I'd like to comment on the fact that teacher and student input was not valued in making this decision. As a district that stresses inclusivity, you've completely excluded your stakeholders. You've ignored the people that truly care about this program. Why did those who are going to be impacted by this decision find out by an email at the same time? Why did the gifted teachers find out that their program was being reformed the same day that I did? As this call progresses, you're hearing more and more input from students and parents of students about how much the program has positively impacted their high school experience. You're hearing parents ask you to rethink this decision. As a community, it's extremely frustrating that our input is not valued in major decisions like this, and it makes me, as a student, worried for the future of our school. It makes me wonder how other major decisions will be made. Moving on, a variable that's being ignored in this conversation, especially as you describe alternative programs, is the community that this program builds. I myself went through the program for the full 2 years, and each gifted block that I was a part of was the most positive classroom environment I've ever been in. The teachers managed the classroom in a unique way that fostered genuine relationships among students. I've never experienced that before. The curriculum challenged me, but I also wasn't scared to be wrong. This is the type of student input that should have been included in the discussion. How will your new program continue to foster the same environment that the current program does?
I'd like to take that one if I can. So, April, thank you for sharing what you shared. I hope that, and maybe you had tuned into the beginning, or maybe I didn't do a very good job of explaining, but I hope you do know that everyone on this panel does agree that there is a tremendous community that is fostered as part of the program. We are looking to extend that community, and I've said a couple of times, into the general education core curriculum, but also provide it in other ways outside of the community or the program, the current program of English and social studies. So we're still, I mean, there are a ton of ideas, but the idea that we can provide gifted field trips to students so that community, that there's a gifted elective or a gifted seminar that's an option for gifted students to continue to build that community. But again, outside of the core curriculum of English and social studies, I do want you to hear us though. We do recognize that community that is built currently is very valuable, and we're not looking to eliminate it. We're looking to reframe how it's provided.
Thank you, Dr. Haney. Chris Young, are you ready to unmute?
Yes, I am. Thank you. I'm really disappointed right now. I like to separate the idea of challenge and the idea of enrichment. And I think I'm reframing enrichment in a different way. I'm not talking just about the content, although I don't understand why we can't do math and science, kind of like we do English and history. And yes, I understand we need to involve more children, and I would love to see that happen. And one of the best things that I think happens for my daughter has been over the years building this community, as it was said, building off one another every day. They don't have an opportunity to build relationships with other students that exist at their level of intellectual challenge every day. It's not just about the program. It's not just about classes. It's about an experience that sometimes, if they didn't have that, could be really isolating from others. They're the one who always gets the great grade. They're the one who, the teacher really likes. No, they need this place that it's safe, that everyone is an equal, and sending them on field trips and putting them in study halls. We know our kids, our study halls, they're going to get work done. They're not going to be interacting with each other. I don't know how to create an environment for my kid to feel like I'm the same as these other people, and they push me every day, and I'm learning through different modalities, which I know they do in the gifted class. My God, if we want to add to the experience, what could they do in science? That would be amazing. I just don't know how to provide that in any other environment. Someone earlier said we looked at private schools. Not all of us have that option. That's why we literally moved to Wissahickon when our children were young. Can someone explain how we can manage to do that without just telling us again, we're going to have field trips, we're going to have seminars? I'm talking about this being a cohort that goes through school together.
Chris,
Thank you, Chris.
I'm
the
going
feedback.
to we're going to have to agree to disagree on that. To be honest, I think the cohort and that community can be achieved outside of an English and social studies classroom. And so what we have talked about is possible options for how to build that community for our gifted students, recognizing how important it is. I do think that if we, and again, it was a thought, but if we offered a gifted enrichment elective course or a gifted study hall, for lack of a better word, it doesn't have to be a study hall. It could be an opportunity to touch base or decompress or talk or extend or enrich or I don't think that community needs to be built in an English or social studies class. I do believe there are other ways to build community for like-minded peers in our high school.
Thank you, Dr. Haney. The next caller is Patrick. Patrick, are you ready to unmute? The next caller is Michael. Patrick or Michael, are you there?
Hello?
Hello, is this Michael?
Yeah, it is. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So, as a student perspective who went through the gifted program, with all due respect, I feel as though I could provide you guys some feedback. Just because I don't think you guys quite exactly grasp what the gifted program is, what it means. And honestly, the last hour and a half has been quite painful for me and all the other students on this call to listen to. I don't even know what's going on. I mean, like if you look at the chat, there's 147 unanswered questions, and there's just going to be more and more. And the questions that have been asked, I'd say maybe 10% have an answer. So I don't really understand, and maybe I can go through my mindset and explain what I learned from the gifted program and how that would shape my process if I was in your shoes. So first of all, before I made a decision like this, I feel like probably having conversations with stakeholders would be a good idea. Talking not only to students, but alumni, the teachers involved, parents. I don't really understand why, for example, I was on the school start times committee and we met several times several years ago. That was before we even came anywhere close to making a decision, which I think isn't even quite as impactful. And then to continue, the core of what you learn in gifted is that, you know, everything you say has to be built with reason and evidence. And for every question you're being asked, you admitted, like, we have no data. There's no quantitative numbers. There's nothing behind our reasoning other than, and it pains me every time you guys say, I believe this, I think that, but you have no real data. There's nothing backing your beliefs and your thoughts. Like, it's painful as students to sit here that the representatives of Wissahickon School District, the people making this decision, are saying, I believe this and I believe that. And in gifted, we had to do, for as one example, annotated bibliographies. These are for every project, like the neuroscience and the bioethics project, which involve plenty of math and science, by the way. Basically, you have to take a list of sources and analyze evidence, and you have to summarize it in a bibliography, and you have to quote and paraphrase and summarize. And I just feel like there's so much data that goes into that. And all these 9th and 10th graders are able to take so much evidence and come up with these complex theories and theses and decisions. And you guys have come to a decision, but with no evidence. And it's all your beliefs, and you think this and you think that. And it just pains us as students to have to listen to this and endure this, because it goes against everything that we were taught in the gifted program. And I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but I'm just saying, when you have 150 unanswered questions and so many people waiting to talk, maybe we should rethink. Maybe we should have these conversations. Maybe we should have a new plan. You guys are saying, perhaps we'll solve it with this. Maybe we'll fix it with that. Like, why would you eliminate the model without having a new plan? Why didn't you have conversations with stakeholders before this? Like, none of this makes sense to me. I'm sorry, but it's so frustrating. And I I feel like I need to express my concerns. So I know I asked a lot of questions, but perhaps moving forward, because I know we don't have a lot of time left, maybe we should think back on the decision when you have still 150 unanswered questions. Maybe you should schedule another meeting, get real community input. Maybe you should find actual data before, with all due respect, 4 people make a decision that seems quite confusing. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate your feedback. Patrick, are you there now? Patrick, are you able to unmute?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I was just wondering if you guys could answer a question that was posed by my friend Charles Lee. I think it went unanswered, and like he's a good friend of mine. He's someone that I managed to meet. He's a year older than me, someone I managed to meet through the gifted program myself. And he's just a really great person. And so I was wondering if you could answer his question. I think he's still here. So if you could unmute him, that'd be really great. Thank you.
We will be taking all the questions that are in this group chat, and we have somebody taking down the questions that have been on the telephone, and we will be providing an FAQ with answers sometime after tonight. I'm just going to do a couple more questions. It looks like we're getting close to the time.
So Kelly, can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
I was going to ask if publicly if we could take a couple more questions, and then if there are additional questions that we haven't answered, if folks could type them into the chat, and then over the next couple of days, Kelly, if you and I could create an FAQ document, we'll try our best to answer all of the questions and provide the rationale and explanations that that everyone, that it's everyone's looking for, and get that posted as soon as possible. I ask, give us a couple of days to get through this and get the answers that you're looking for to your questions. But it's not reasonable to assume, as some of our callers have said. I see over 99 questions in the Q&A, and I think we could look to try to answer a couple questions, Kelly, that maybe haven't been asked at this point. And then the rest of the questions, perhaps we can just post to an FAQ document. I still encourage anyone who wants to reach out to me or to Kelly with questions, but I think the FAQ document might also address, or definitely will address, the questions that have been posted to the chat and to the Q&A discussion board here.
Karen, there was a question, given the change that are not being finalized until May, how would the students enroll in the classes for next year?
Yeah, I saw that. I think we answered that question. As one of the schedulers at the high school, certainly we will make sure that the kids' needs are met. Nothing's finalized in terms of the master schedule, to be quite honest, until sometime in July officially. And so if we need to tweak things for individual students, and we likely will, we will handle that on a case-by-case basis and ensure that those students are appropriately programmed for next year.
There was a question from a new parent in the district asking how to enroll their kids in the gifted program. On our district website, under student services, there is a whole section on gifted education program, and in there it tells you how you can request for your student to be evaluated for gifted.
You want to take 2 or 3 more, Kelly, that might be
Yeah,
in there?
I'm just going through and seeing if there's anything that we have not answered yet or try to answer. Will the 9th and 10th grade cohort be maintained or mimicked? It has been a powerful and positive setup, so curious if that will continue.
Sorry, ask that again. What was the question?
Will the 9th and 10th grade cohort be maintained or mimicked? It has been a powerful and positive setup, so curious if that will be continued.
So I think that's what we've been talking about all evening, right? And so we're looking to reframe how we provide the gifted support outside of the English and social studies classes. But I will admit, and I will say publicly, that there are great things that happen in those classes that we will look to implement in other ways, or in those ways in our core classes across all core curricular areas. English, social studies, science, and math for all students at the high school, grades 9 through 12. Kelly, there were a couple questions on here about whether or not this is being, and I think it's important to address it. So I'd like to just bring it up, but there seems to be some questions asking about, is the driving force behind these changes related to diversity or equity, or is there a financial reason? And my answer, and Kelly, you answered it already. The answer is no. No, it is no.
There's a couple questions. Parents are asking that their students are in 8th grade or 7th grade and they're in the evaluation process. Will that continue? Absolutely, it will continue. Students who are currently in the evaluation process will continue with the evaluation. So at this time, I'm going to close out the question and answer section. Know that we will go back and pull all the questions off of the question and answer section. We do have somebody again taking the questions that are coming in through phone calls. If we did not get to your phone call, please feel free to go into the question and answer and put it your question in there. And the people you see on the call will get together and we'll look at the questions and provide an FAQ to you in the near future. We want to thank you for your time tonight. I appreciate everybody's comments. I think I can speak for everybody on this call that we appreciate your comments and your feedback. We know that you are passionate about the enrichment program at the high school, and we hope that what we're passionate about is that you will be able to see that in the new reframing of our model up at the high school when we get to that point. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to Dr. Haney or myself, or even Dr. Schmidt or Mr. Latoya. This is a recorded presentation, and the slide decks will be posted on the website sometime in the near future as well. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight and hope everyone has a nice evening.